Okay, so to proceed from where we stopped in the previous tutorial, so let us look at another part of the SQL syntax. So after the data definition, then you have data manipulation, that is the DML. So data manipulation, they help us to manipulate, to impact something on the data. Okay. The other one was to create. Okay. We want to create some objects, but now here, okay, we want to perform something on the data. We want to make some changes. We want to create the data itself. We want to, so it is the data manipulation. So statements allow us to manipulate the data in the table of a database. So this is now specific. It is not to any object, but basically on the tables. As I told you in the introductory class, I told you that the main component, okay, maybe I didn't say that, but I said data is organized in the database around subjects. For each subject we create a table. That makes a table to be the primary object in the database because it is the main container of our data. So you cannot have data in a function, you cannot have a data in any other object. The only object that contains data are the tables. So the data manipulation language specifically works with tables because it's the table that has the data. So we want to manipulate the data, so they are used on tables. So these include things like, I'll start with the insert. So this one will create the data to insert the records into the data. I think I mentioned about this in the discussion we had on Zoom. And then update will make changes. Okay, it allows you to renew existing data, that is to make some changes in the data. This is update is different from the outer that I mentioned in this data definition. This outer, remember here we say that this one creates objects like database and tables. So when you create an existing table and you want to make some changes to just the table definition, then that's when we use the outer, the table, but not the data in the table. So the update, it doesn't work with the table, but it works with the data in the table. Okay, so insert creates the data into the table, and then update changes the data in the table, but it doesn't change the table. And then delete, obviously it removes the records from the table, and then the select, it retrieves in case you want to see certain set of data from the table. We use the select statements. We are going to spend much time here, okay, because this is the core part. So we need to know how to create the tables. After creating the tables, then how do we deal with the data in the table? Because this is the main component that we are working with that contains the data in our database. So some amount of time is going to be spent on these four statements, especially the select. Then data control languages. Language. These statements, they help us to control the database. As you know, a database is just a server, so meaning that it may as a server, it may contain multiple databases and multiple users that access this database. So there has to be some way that we use to control the databases within the server. Let me hope you get what I mean by server and what I mean by database. The server is just like a machine or a virtual machine, and then on that server, its purpose is to provide database services. And among the services of a database is to have a database. Okay, so yes, I was saying that on the server we may have so many databases that are on the server, and then we need to find a way of controlling. So meaning that who accesses which server and which privileges do they have? Can they create a database? Can they view the information of a given database? Can they maybe manipulate the data that is inside a given database? So basically, the privileges that the users of the server have on the databases that are on that server. So just to break it down for you, we may have like the ERP server, because the ERP is a service on its own. So we can purchase a server, a machine that provides the services of the ERP. So on there, we want to access, or we want to make to say who has the privilege to access first this server. And if he has access to the server, then what can he do? Can he change something with the ERP files? Or can he maybe remove or delete? So this is what I'm trying to talk about. And maybe that ERP server can have other things that are installed on it. So data control language, they help us to manage, to control the server, and basically who accesses by the use of privileges and revoking privileges, who accesses which database and which rights does he have on this databases on the server. So we have the grant to give permission to a certain user, and the revoke to remove permissions from a given user. So we may not we may not, actually I don't think we shall come this side, but just know that, okay, this one also exists, but we may not come this side because we are not yet at the level of administering the server. Then transaction, these ones, they control a given transaction or statement that we are about to execute. So if I write a statement that creates a table, okay, that is a transaction that I'm making to the database. If I create a statement that is to insert data into a table, that is a transaction because it impacts something on the database. So this transaction control, they help us to control these queries that we shall be writing. So not every change you make to the database is saved automatically. The TCL statements are used to permanently save transactions or undo the changes made. So it happens that sometimes you may create a list of queries that maybe you're going to be executing all at once, but you have like maybe 5 queries, okay? But before we execute the last query, we may say that these earlier for the first 4 queries, their data is not saved yet. It's not yet permanently saved to the database, but they have executed and maybe they are stored temporarily somewhere. So if all goes well with these 5 statements, then we can say, let us now commit them, let us save them. But if anything goes wrong within the 5 statements and they all don't execute, then we would like to revoke, so that we don't make partial changes to the database. So if all these 5 statements are supposed to be executed at once, but maybe one of them fails, then none should be saved. So to avoid that, we use the transaction control statements. So it first holds those transactions somewhere, and they don't impact the database. They don't make any changes to the database, not until we have tested all the 5 and they are going to be fine. That's when we can push the data after. But if anything goes wrong, then we can undo the changes. And we have 2 statements. We have the commit. So the commit, it saves the transaction in the database. Changes cannot be undone. Once we commit, this will save the changes you have made, and we will let other users have access to them, to the modified version. But by default, when you write these statements, the SQL statements, by default, mySQL commits the data. But we shall see, in case we don't want to use the default commit and we want to manage the commit, then we shall see how to do that. And if we don't have to commit, or maybe something goes wrong, then the statement that helps us to undo the changes is the rollback. So the rollback will let you make a step back. This allows you to undo any changes you have made but don't want to be saved permanently. So as I told you, we may bundle a list of statements, but if anything goes wrong, then we can just undo them, so that we don't save partial data into the database. So this reverts to the last non-committed statement. So the last statement that was not committed, that's when it rolls back to. So why mySQL? Why are we choosing mySQL from a list of the Oracle, the Microsoft SQL, the Postgres, the MariaDB? So the reason is it is reliable, mature and open source. I believe by now we know what open source means, with a large developer and contributor community. So many people, so many developers, and so many organizations are using mySQL, which is a popular database server system. So that's why we are also like, okay, this is popular, it has been tested, and it is being used by renowned companies, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, including IU, meaning that our ERP runs on the MySQL server. So like, okay, let us also learn this popular database server. After all, even others use SQL. So once we learn MySQL, you just need a few things to learn Oracle or to get along with Postgres and others. And basing on the rankings, I forgot to change this. It is latest 2021, according to this, July 2021. Okay, so it is just recent. So you can see that MySQL ranks second after Oracle, and it has maintained this position for 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 almost so many years, because even in 2018, the data that, because I just adopted this from the internet, just as I was creating this ranking, I mean these slides, the ranking that we had was for 2018, but it was almost the same, and MySQL was the third even from 2018. So up to now, it has maintained that position. So it is popular. Okay, so that's why we are choosing it. So that's it for the introduction to SQL. In the next tutorial, we are going to start looking at the things that we need to actually start writing the SQL language and to create databases and tables. For now, Assalamu alaikum.